Traveller, lay down your burdens on the roadside and take a moment to find that way shrine of Julianos hidden beyond the thickets. In that quaint grove, spy the ebony pyramid and listen to the divine sage's words. Julianos says, know the truth, observe the law. When in doubt, seek wisdom from the wise. Followers of Julianos are a scourge of candles and paper mills, as the pursuit of knowledge doesn't end with the setting of the sun. Even in his ancient Nordic origins, when he was known as Junal, Julianos was the god of language and mathematics. He provided the Northmen with their hermetic orders, the religious and philosophical backing of their esoteric traditions. Now in the Cyrodiilic pantheon, Julianos represents wisdom and logic. He governs the intellectual arts of law, literature, history, and debate, and he is the patron of arcane academics across the empire. After the Oblivion crisis ravaged Tamriel, a great many detractors of Julianos emerged, and anti-magic sentiment seemed to go hand in hand with the abandonment of all scholastic endeavours. The baby was thrown out with the bathwater. But Julianos is the proud patron to the wise, to those who pursue understanding, not the superstitious and the bigoted. Those who sought the truth would continue to revere him, and those who disavowed him were likely never the type to follow him in the first place. But the question is, how would Julianos feel about another deity who also values the virtue of learning and the search for answers to life's hardest questions? If he loves knowledge, how could he not love the Daedra lord Hermaeus Mora? Granted, he has good reason to dislike the Daedra in general, but it was Mehrunes Dagon who instigated the anti-magic sentiment on Tamriel, not the woodland man Hermaeus Mora. Hermaeus Mora is the riddle unsolvable, the door unopenable, the book unreadable, the question unanswerable. His sphere encompasses the scrying of the tides of fate as seen in the stars and the heavens, but also the fields of knowledge and memory. Both physically and psychologically, Hermaeus Mora is the ultimate riddle for the big-brained Julianos. He is an enigma, and he is quite literally a mass of writhing tentacles and 1,000 all-seeing eyes. Imagine how much Julianos and his followers could learn from inviting Hermaeus Mora over for tea. Many scholars and lore masters have been ensnared by the lure of learning the secrets that only Hermaeus Mora possesses in his endless labyrinthine library of Apocrypha. And I think it's fair to say that many scholars and lore masters have given their entire lives to uncovering the knowledge Julianos possesses too. In many ways, they are two sides of the same coin. But I can't help but have a few questions of my own. Would these two diametrically opposed yet eerily similar gods see eye to eye? Mora has no shortage of eyes after all. How would the god of wisdom and learning feel about the prince's archives of forbidden knowledge? Can knowledge even be forbidden to Julianos? And most importantly, who is more intelligent? So many questions, but I guess that's fitting when discussing the gods associated with finding answers. Hey guys, it's Drew the Daedrologist here, and I found my way back to Apocrypha for this video. I found a secluded nook in Mora's realm, away from the tormented ghosts of lost scholars, and the seething seekers who haunt me with Lovecraftian nightmares. And in a stroke of luck, I've discovered that there's no shortage of ink and parchment here for me to write this video. If you're listening to me now, that probably means the seekers didn't find me, and I wasn't fed to the lurkers. Before we get into it, I just want to thank my fellow Daedrologist, Galamir V, for suggesting this topic. But with that said, let's get started. Julianos' sphere of influence is not quite as cut and dry as it may seem. He promotes scholarship, the discovery of information, yet his dominion over law and mathematics provide an inconvenient dichotomy. These schools of thought are rigid and rely on constant, unchanging principles. What if a worshipper of Julianos excels so far in his quest for knowledge that he stumbles upon troublesome truths about the universe? A good example is mysticism. This form of magic, as you'll know if you saw my recent video on psychics and Tamriel, relies on the user embracing a temporary form of insanity. It is a spiritual process in which logic must be flirted with, but not followed. With mysticism, a school of magic Julianos is the patron of, a mage may manipulate magical forces and boundaries to bypass the structures and limitations of the physical world. How can anyone reconcile the laws of physics and mathematics with a magic that bends and shapes what's mortally possible to suit the mage's will? This problem can be applied to Hermaeus Mora. If his realm of Apocrypha holds the secrets for mortals to achieve immortality, ascend to godhood, or change the fate of Tamriel, would Julianos forbid his students from travelling there? Julianos encourages his flock to learn, but what if they choose to learn secrets that contradict the strict rule of law, science, and mathematics? A good argument for why Julianos may want to discourage such knowledge from entering the mainstream is just how dangerous it could be. The Divines sacrificed a great deal of power in creating the mortal realm, and it would count for nothing if heretics ran rampant, meddling with powers not meant for them. The Dwemer acknowledged no gods above their own intelligence, and look what happened to them. The tribunal of demigods attuned themselves with Lorkhan's divinity, and the whole of Tamriel should thank the gods that they were not negligent with it. Under their leadership, no foreign powers dared to challenge Morrowind, not even Tiber Septim in his prime, and those who did, like Riemann Cyrodiil II, suffered greatly for it. In the wrong hands, the godly gifts bestowed upon the tribunal could have been used for great evil and unimaginable destruction. In the interest of protecting mortals, maybe Julianos does consider some knowledge to be off-limits. Over in Hermaeus Mora's domain, no such limits exist. Unlike most gods, Hermaeus Mora doesn't humour mortals by appearing to them in a familiar form. He doesn't manifest as man or mer, instead showing himself in all his grotesque glory. A menagerie of monstrous tentacles, ink-black eyes and crustaceous claws. He divulges all of his gluttonous grandeur to any traveller brave enough to read the profane contents of his black books. However, most mortals won't be met with a warm welcome, and will instead be drowned in the sea of ink. For that reason, I'd recommend sneaking into Apocrypha, perhaps via teleportation. But if you happen to be a special one like the last Dragonborn or Marak, the first Dragonborn, Hermaeus Mora may take a liking to you and offer you unending revelations in exchange for a lifetime of servitude. Brief word of warning though, this onslaught of prohibited information may just drive you insane. This was famously the fate of the legendary conjuration master Morian Zenos, who braved the ash pit of Malakath, Molag Bal's cold harbour, Azura's moon shadow, Vermina's quagmire, only to meet his demise in Mora's library. Morian Zenos described an endless library, shelves stretching on in every direction, stacks on top of stacks. Pages floated on a mystical wind that he could not feel. Every book had a black cover with no title. He could see no one, but felt the presence of ghosts moving through the stacks, rifling through books, ever searching. Zenos had been in constant contact with his apprentice while adventuring the other four realms. But in Apocrypha he grew quiet, introspective. His apprentice transcribed their final fleeting exchanges. He would whisper, "This cannot be. No one would ever guess the truth. I must learn more. I see the world, a last illusion's shimmer. It is crumbling all around us." I would cry back to him, begging him to tell me what was happening, what he was seeing, what he was learning. I even tried using conjuration to summon him, as if he were a Daedra himself, but he refused to leave. Morian Zenos was lost. I last received a whisper from him 6 months ago. Before then, it had been 5 years, and 3 before that. His thoughts are no longer intelligible in any language. Perhaps he is still in Apocrypha, lost but happy, in a trap he refuses to escape. Perhaps he slipped between the stacks and passed into the madhouse of Sheogorath, losing his sanity forever. I would save him if I could. I would silence his whispers if I could. The potential for the universe's forbidden knowledge to endanger mortals is one thing, but Julianos would also have good reason to keep his acolytes from learning secrets that simply are not meant for them to learn. Morian Zenos was an expert on the dark and Daedric forces of the universe, but even he could not resist losing his sanity to the full extent of Hermaeus Mora's hidden knowledge. Despite this, the idea of Julianos denouncing any efforts to learn would seemingly infuriate the academics at the School of Julianos. Just look at the policy written in their Daggerfall chapter. The School of Julianos is no mere temple, dedicated to the mindless obeisance to a distant and hazy god figure. Julianos is a god, to be sure, but foremost he is a symbol of learning, logic, philosophy, and wisdom. We espouse no moral philosophy other than the goodness of knowledge. As the great Sigik once said, the power of ignorance can truly shatter mithril like glass. That is our enemy. Scholarship is a long and difficult journey, and Julianos does not tolerate those who wish to shorten it. While we advocate literacy and education for all Tamrielans, our policy for those who wish to join the school itself is very stringent. We have little time to waste training the slow and the lazy. Imagine telling one of these scholars that Julianos was withholding information from them. If we ask the question, which god has the biggest brain, I'd say, in a literal sense, Hermaeus Mora probably takes first place. He manifests as an amorphous assemblage of eyes and tentacles. He doesn't waste space inside his meat sack with a skeleton. I'd wager that he's almost entirely filled with brains. But in terms of intelligence, I think it's impossible to say. Hermaeus Mora doesn't hide the fact that he has accrued all the forbidden knowledge of the universe in his library. But at the same time, he is far more present in the lives of mortals. Julianos likely knows all things as well. It's just he doesn't boast of his inflated intellect, nor does he use it as a bargaining tool for a mortal's eternal servitude. All things considered, Julianos has a vested interest in the well-being of Mundus and its inhabitants, and this fact alone creates a conflict of interest. Does he remain faithful to his sphere of influence, encouraging all scholastic pursuits, even when some academics may uncover perilous truths? Or does he limit their learning abilities, ensuring that no mortal is privy to secrets that are not meant for mortal minds? I'd argue the latter. The Divines tied up a great deal of their power in creating the realm, and it would be unwise to give the more ambitious mortals the information necessary to jeopardize their work. And that's what I think it comes down to. In many ways, Julianos and Hermaeus Mora are two sides of the same coin, but there is an essential distinction. Hermaeus Mora's sphere is knowledge without constraint. If this information exists, then it can be learned, no matter the consequences. But Julianos' sphere is wisdom. Wisdom does incorporate the ideals of intelligence and acquiring knowledge, but by definition it also includes experience, good judgment, and the virtue of sensibility. With Julianos' wisdom, you can learn something crucial that Hermaeus Mora cannot teach you, and that's the ability to deny yourself knowledge that may destroy you or others. It's the ability to be sensible and responsible with an immensely powerful tool, intelligence. And there you have it, guys, the battle of the brains, Julianos and Hermaeus Mora, though it's more of a debate than a brawl. But with that said, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I've been Drew, your resident Daedrologist, this has been FudgeMuppet, and I'll see you in the next one.